This is Wake Up Sierra Leone here on AYV Television and Radio. We're broadcasting from our studio at 3 Wesley Street off Pedemba Road in Freetown, Sierra Leone's capital.
Coming up in the show this morning, Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte, who is the Deputy Speaker of Parliament of Sierra Leone, who also doubles as the Chairman for the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, will be speaking on the activities of the Public Accounts Committee, which is the PAC for short, in 2024 and plans for 2025, among other things.
And we shall be reviewing the year 2024 and what is expected in 2025 in terms of governance, democracy, and the economy, amongst other things.
As always, we do encourage you to be a part of the program simply by following us on our Facebook page. Drop us there your comments, questions, and contributions. And as we go along, we'll have to go through segments. Similarly, so do so for Radio 101.7 FM and on television, channel 399 and channel 33. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone.
Happy New Year again. Now in our first segment, after a stunning, unprecedented, intense inquiry into and recovery of money unaccounted for in the 2022 audit report, the Public Accounts Committee has left public officials standing on their toes, deeming the committee as biting in contrast to the toothless bulldog as it was seen in erstwhile years. Now, last year alone, 2024, the committee recovered billions of loans from MDAs who were deemed to not account for certain amount of money in the report, with others also coming from GST, payee, and other taxes. Now, following the tabling of the 2023 audit report in the Well of Parliament in December of 2024, the committee says it is all set to kickstart this month. While the recent report captures over a lot of issues, with Zodlab having a financial query of over $6 billion and Kingo about $5 billion. So this morning, to talk on the PAC activities in 2024 and what is expected in 2025, we have the Deputy Speaker of Parliament and Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte, with us. Good morning, Happy New Year.
Good morning, Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to Sierra Leoneans.
Good morning.
Let's talk about the transformation from a title pegged by the public as toothless bulldog for not looking into the previous audit reports to now being very active and vigorous to deal into the audit reports. What led to this transition?
Well, firstly, I think it's about the personality. Different people have handled the Public Account Committee before. We've had a number of deputy speakers, because by our standing orders, the minute you are elected the deputy speaker of the House, statutorily you are the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And we have seen all of them make their own contributions in different ways. We've had the Honorable Chukuma Johnson, we've had the Honorable Cheno Ramadan Majuba, we've had the Honorable Segepo Solomon Thomas before me, and everybody has their own strategy. My strategy is, it is an accountability and transparency report, and it is for the public to see and understand exactly how we deal with it. There is no in-camera session. There is nothing secret about it. The document itself is a public document. So I see no reason why a document is in the public and I would hold hearings on that document in private, or I would condone conversation around issues raised in that particular report in my office or in the conference room, wherein I would restrict or twist the press under SO 75. So what I've done since taking over is, firstly, to respect the Constitution. And the Constitution in section 103 says the press has the rights to witness every sitting, every hearing, every committee proceedings. But however, they should report exactly what transpired in that hearing. They should not add, neither reduce or modify what transpires in the hearing. If there are resolutions taken, they should report the resolutions as they are. So for me, that particular provision overrides whatever it is in the standing orders in SO 75. Because SO 75 is saying premature publication. That is to say, the committee is looking into AYV, for example, and there are unfolding events around the hearing on AYV. and the press decides to carry it out, or to carry an article or a media headline on that particular unraveling incident, it is not wrong by the Constitution. It was what transpired in the committee that the press is reporting to the public. So for me, I see that as the benchmark for the work of the PAC. So when I took over in June, I was elected in May. When I took over in June, I reset the entire structure of the PAC. Firstly, members of parliament are not net people. They don't have knowledge on everything. They tend to understand issues as they are presented to them, but they don't have expertise in every field for them to understand what the numbers are in terms of looking at the general purpose financial statement, which is the audited account of government, which shows a number of layers of issues, including taxes, arrears, revenues, expenditure, salaries, a number of issues that is detailed in the GPFS.
Let me underline that word you just used, the expertise, which perhaps the members of the committee may not have in every field. How do you go about getting whatever the procedure is to get maybe a second opinion or an expert opinion in some of these technical details?
Okay, firstly, the standing orders of parliament gives mandate to the speaker, and under standing order 42, chairmen of committees, when once they sit in the committee, they sit as the speaker. They sit in replica of the speaker, representing the speaker of parliament. So whatever they decide becomes a decision taken by parliament and overseen by the speaker. So the standing order gives the speaker the right to solicit expert advice in areas, particularly when it comes to budget and financial issues, wherein members of parliament are not versed in. So for us in the PAC, what I did was, because we don't have the expertise, most of us don't have general understanding on all of the issues raised in the audit report, we would have engagement. I initiated an engagement with the audit service for them to give us a thorough appraisal, a thorough debrief of the report as it was presented to Parliament and table on the table of Parliament, to give us the schedules of all of the issues raised, because you would see an issue raised on a particular MDA, but the general public will not be privy to the schedules. For example, if there is a procurement issue, that procurement process were not followed, or several suppliers were contracted, but those suppliers did not deliver, you will not see sometimes the full list of all the suppliers and the infractions that were caused. So the audit service would give you that, and you discuss, because in most of the reports, like you have seen, you will realize that they would quote certain provisions in legislations or regulation. But beyond those few highlights of regulations or provisions in the legislation, there are other provisions in other legislations that would either tie into that infraction or that would provide for penalties for breach of that particular provision. So what they would do is to just give a general summary of what has obtained during the course of the audit. So we'll sit to them. When I took over, I ensured that we had a session. We sat with them, we had an extensive discussion on it. So members were prepared. Members were given the necessary emergency short briefing for them to be prepared to take up the audit report. Further to that, I also encourage from within, we have a debrief session every day. We'll look at the issues, like we'll have a mock session before we sit. Okay. So we'll look at the issues, we'll analyze them, we'll agree, and where necessary, whether it's from me or from other members, would highlight the other legislations that are related to that particular infraction. So that is how I have been able to manage the membership and also develop their appetite for openness and for further reading and further inquiry, because you cannot understand the report in detail if you don't know other legislations. For example, the report is holistic, but it has to do with the Income Tax Act of 2000, it has to do with the GST Act of 2009, it has to do with the Public Procurement Act of 2016, the Public Procurement Regulation of 2020, the Public Financial Management Act of 2016, Public Financial Management Regulations of 2018, and other subsequent legislations related to them, or other policies. So if you look at the current report now, let me just cite an example. You will realize that a lot of reference was made to the Civil Service Code regulations and rules for the HRMO. So these are issues, issues that would come up. So you prepare your membership. So once your members are prepared, they will not be experts in the field, but they would have the requisite knowledge to probe and get the necessary action taken with regards to those infractions.
The PAC is very integral in the operations and activities of Parliament. More so, it's one that speaks to accountability within various government ministries, departments, and agencies. And its work seeks in tune with what's been presented by the Auditor General's office. What's the implication of the removal of the Auditor General on this year's audit reports? Well,
two things are critical about the finality of the removal of the Auditor General and a deputy. First, the Constitution gives mandates to the President, like for judges in Section 137, to suspend a judge. And the same procedure that the President will use for the suspension and maybe further removal of a judge is the same provision that is prescribed for the Auditor General. So you would have to set up the tribunal would have to look at the evidence, all the evidence profiled before the tribunal, the defense and everything. Then the tribunal will come up with a report. And the report will be presented back to the President that had initiated the process as provided for by the Constitution. And once the report is presented, it is up to the President to accept or reject the report. And if the report is accepted with its recommendations, it is now for the executive to send that report to Parliament. And Parliament's role in 137.7 and 137.10 is simple. It's just to vote, to agree or to disagree. So what comes to Parliament is the byproduct of the processes laid out by the Constitution, and Parliament's role is to cast a vote on whether they agree to those processes or they do not agree to those processes. So the final outcome is the decision made by Parliament, because the Auditor General is a staff of Parliament. If you look at the report, you go to Section 1194. When they prepare the reports, they present it to Parliament. So the Auditor General's report is the property of Parliament. So whatever they do, even their audits, it is Parliament that appoints auditors to audit the Auditor General. Even their reports, when they do performance audits on the audit service, it is Parliament that has the right to look at the performance audits done on the audit service. Their account, it is Parliament that examines their own accounts. So the Auditor General's office is an extension of parliamentary accountability and transparency duties.
We'll talk a lot about the PAC, but again, was Parliament so far satisfied with the procedures in the removal of the Auditor General?
It is for us to either accept or reject. Our satisfaction level comes in the vote. And if you look at the vote that comes out that Parliament had in, was it the 21st of December, you would realize that the outcome of the tribunal's report and its recommendation is not under concession, because it was approved by 2/3 of members of Parliament. Even though the report does not require 2/3, but it was approved by 2/3 of members of Parliament. Even though the report requires 2/3 of members in Parliament, but it was approved by 2/3 of members of Parliament, meaning totality of Parliament. So it shows clearly what Parliament's position is with regards to that particular report and its recommendation.
Did you vote?
I voted, yes.
And you voted, voted in favor of the removal?
And that is subject to Section 37 of the Constitution. It is secret ballot.
Honorable Tawa, let's look at this vibrance that the Public Accounts Committee now has, which is celebrated, has somewhat left the Anti-Corruption Commission sort of maybe useless or inactive, especially when it comes to the Auditor General's report.
Well, there are accountability units or bodies in government led by the PAC, because Parliament is an organ of government. Part of the 3 organs of government, Parliament is one. lead in terms of the accountability and transparency space. But however, we work with all the other accountability bodies. We work with the Public Procurement Authority, we work with the Audit Service, we work with the Accountant General's Office, we work with the Internal Audit Units in ministries, departments, and agency, so as the Anti-Corruption Commission. They have a mandate that Parliament does not have. They have a prosecutorial power. So whatever that is criminal, that we deem as criminal in the report, that we cannot recover, or we can recover, but we think there should be a criminal prosecution on that particular audit exception, we refer to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
What does the Constitution say concerning the relationship between the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament and the Anti-Corruption Commission as it connects to the Auditor General's report?
Well, I am sure...
I ask because the ACC not long ago, before we left for the Christmas break, was in the studio, and the submission was Parliament is somewhat putting a pause on their inquiry into the Auditor General's reports until Parliament is done, and then Parliament can refer what it wants to refer to the ACC. And
that is the position. The position is, if you look at the drafters of the Constitution and the Constitution we have now, it was passed into law in 1991. Then there was no thought of passing into law a legislation for the setting up of an anti-corruption agency. So directly there is no connection between the PAC and the Anti-Corruption Commission. But however, the audit report, as provided for in subsection 4 of section 119, is the property of Parliament. It is given to Parliament. It is for us, and I appreciate it a whole lot, that at the time when a vacuum was created in the management of the Auditor General's reports, I am not casting any aspersion on anybody, but at the time when vacuum was created, the Anti-Corruption Commission was proactive enough to ensure that they closed that vacuum, and they did not allow an open-ended space for unaccountable activities and transaction in governance that are unclear and unexplained. So for me, what they have done is a clear show of the synergy that should exist between the accountability bodies in government. Before now, they were doing it because a vacuum existed. And now, the PAC has taken its rightful position. The PAC is doing exactly what was expected by the drafters of the Constitution. And what we are doing sits very well with the Anti-Corruption Commission. Even though we don't report to them, they report to us. But as an accountability family, we work in close proximity. And they now understand that where we have a jam and where there are issues that requires prosecution, that is of criminal intent, that is of criminal nature, would refer it to them, and they will move forward with the evidence we would have gathered. Let me give you an instance. They looked at the issue of the Sierra Leone Commercial Bank and the acquisition of the... Having looked at it, having gone through it, they put out a report. And the report, we looked at the report, and we had to implement the recommendations from the Anti-Corruption Commission. It doesn't mean that Parliament is a subset of the Anti-Corruption Commission, but they had already, at the time when the vacuum was created, started work on it. And what they did was brilliant.
And that takes us to what I really wanted to get, but I needed this information to lead us to the whole issue with the Auditor General, former Auditor General and her deputy, is not unconnected to investigation into the alleged fake receipts in the office of the president. Now, I had asked the ACC, since that information was made public, what did they do about it? They said they started an investigation to that, but since the Parliament is now taking up its responsibility to look into the audit reports, they have had to stop their investigation. So this brings us straight to Parliament. When would you be looking into that allegation of the alleged fake receipts in the office of the president?
Well, what happened is this. I think it was a report submitted in 2020 or 2021, I cannot remember. So you would realize that when I took over in 2024, yes, I had to combine both the 2021 and 2022 reports. And even that, I could not, as a committee, we could not do exhaustive work on everything. So what we are doing is, as we work on the 2023 reports, we'll still be taking up issues that are left hanging in the 2020, 2021, and 2022 reports, so as to ensure that we complete them and get a final position on them, because at the end of the day, they would keep reoccurring because all these issues don't go away.
Honorable Tawa, it doesn't give me pleasure to interrupt you, but that allegation for manipulated receipts in the office of the presidency obviously has nothing to do with the president as an individual, because even the poorest countries in the world, the president does not handle his affairs. There are people paid to handle those things. But it brings not only an embarrassment to the office of the presidency, but also to the country as a whole. But it seems neither the ACC nor the Public Accounts Committee is taking that allegation as seriously as it should by investigating the people who were in office during that time, who are allegedly involved in that situation. How serious is this to you?
Okay, let's also look at it from this angle, that Parliament also has a principle in the standing orders, that whatever that is in court, and the tribunal is the equivalent of the appeals court, yeah, or the high court, yeah, and if it's before the tribunal, it is sub judice for Parliament also to look into it. But that
situation, the tribunal was not investigating the alleged fake receipts.
No, the tribunal
they were investigating the professional conduct.
Exactly.
So the professional conduct
and the receipts,
of the people in office then,
and the receipts are part of the evidence that came before the tribunal. So at that point, Parliament is hands-tied. At that point when I took over, I'm hands-tied to look into it.
But now Parliament is free. The tribunal have rounded up. They have presented their report. It leads us to what you've not answered. How seriously do you take these allegations within the office of the presidency, which not only embarrasses the office of the president, but the nation at large, especially that it has to do with other countries?
We take every issues raised by the Auditor General very seriously, and we'll look into them openly.
Would you be looking into this one?
I have just said that at the time when I took over, this was a report, I think, in 2021 or 2020. So we had to combine the 2021.
Yeah, but now just for clarity's sake, so, would you be looking into that
what
allegation?
I have said also is we would continue to look at other issues that are still hanging in the 2020, 2021, 2022.
Specifically, would you be looking into this issue?
The issue of the receipt is still hanging. There are other issues in the office of the president.
Yeah, but let's just speak to this one specifically. Would you be looking into this one?
We would have to look.
Thank you.
How much has exactly been recovered during the session of the PAC's probing into the audit report?
Well, comprehensively, we were targeting 50 billion. But as at the time, the numbers that we've put together, we had recovered about 30 billion from the 2021 and 2022 reports. And this ranges from monies that we are held in the account of MNOs, from taxpayers, from big businesses, from payments for the use or the operation of the machinery operation, and a lot of other areas in government, including ministries, individuals. We had recovered numerically. We can confirm that the 6 months for which we worked as the PAC, when I led the PAC, when I took over the committee, we had recovered about 30 billion. And it is not stopping there, because some of the issues that we are raised in those reports are also in these reports. Some are not in the same vein or in the same fashion, but they are almost similar. For example, let me give you an example. The MNOs were owing UADF about 10.5 billion. That was an issue in 2020 and in 2021 report. It also showed up in 2022. When we took over, we recovered it, they paid. Yeah, but in this report, there is also an issue with regards the MNOs not disclosing their final audited accounts to UADF, which makes it impossible for UADF to calculate exactly what is the percentage of the 7.5, what is the volume of money that they should pay to them. And we're going to look into it as well and ensure that these things should stop. So there are other recurring issues in the previous report that are still in this report that we are going to ensure that we recover. And we've designed a different recovery template for 2023.
We've seen quite a sharp shift in the operations and activities of PAC in Parliament, just to be honest. But again, there's quite a lot to do in terms of the operations of the PAC. Are we going to see a situation wherein an opposition MP will be deputizing Honorable Ibrahim Tawa Conte? PAC?
I think more or less, if you look at the structure and the working of the committee, you realize that the way we work, whether you're deputy or not, you would see the prominent role of the Honorable Aaron Aruna Koroma. We work together, we work seamlessly, we work very closely. You would see the prominence of Honorable Abdul Aziz Bangura, the Honorable from Poloko. You would see how vocal and how open and how open-ended I allow the process to go on. You see how Honorable SOS operates. So for me at the PAC, I think everybody is capable of being deputy, and everybody is deputy by default, because most times, there are times I don't sit, I leave the chair to the Honorable Aruna Koroma or the Honorable PC Desmond Mahia Kagobai. Even PC Kagobai, who is currently the deputy, most time when I give him the opportunity to run the committee on my behalf, he would have to pass it on to Honorable Aaron. So you would see that what I'm building is not position. It's that everybody is leader in the PSC. Everybody has the mandate. Everybody understands what we're doing. That is why we debrief, we engage with the audit service, we work closely with other accountability structures, and all of us do go to those sessions. All of us take them seriously, because any one of us can act on my behalf when I'm absent.
For the names you've mentioned, most of them have been in Parliament for more than two terms. Aaron and even SOS, who is from Bombali district. But that doesn't answer the question. They are just members as we speak. They just act in that way, as you mentioned, leadership. We're expecting an appointment of an opposition MP in that capacity.
An opposition MP was Deputy Honorable Aymara, and it is my desire to recommend and list the Honorable Aruna Koroma as a deputy. There's nothing wrong about it, because as far as I know, we are working in close proximity, we are working together. He has sat a lot of sessions during the last few months that we had towards the close of the year. In fact, when we went for the council oversight, some of the sessions were chaired by him. And even here in Freetown, there were sessions, a lot of sessions by NACSA, Ministry of Health, that were chaired by him. When I had other engagements, I would come, we would commence the committee, and I would leave it in the capable hands of the Honorable Aruna Koroma, which shows that, position-wise, even me as chairman, as statutory chairman, I can leave the committee in the hands of the Secretariat and the other members of Parliament, and they will lead it properly in the same vein and with the same mannerism that I've designed the committee to work.
The Microsoft at some point in time kept zooming on Parliament as one of the most corrupt institutions in country. You yourself, you've alluded to see him over time, and even the Honorable, Gevau, who is also a member of the ruling SLPP. But again, Parliament as we speak, PAC, does hire a stenographer. Is that not the case?
Yeah, we do.
But Parliament has a stenographer. Why is that the case?
Okay. So now this is the issue. I think her name is Lovinda. We have the situation where in the accountability, I think it's AGDB, the accountability for governance projects by the World Bank is also supporting the PAC. And part of their support to the PAC is to provide us, one, with a consultant, a professional expert consultant.
Is she there as a consultant?
No, we have a consultant. There are two positions that is under the accountable governance for service delivery projects. Yeah, we have the consultant accountant that should help us with our work, that should help us dissect these numbers and these issues, and we also have a stenographer. So what the World Bank is supporting is the oversight exercise on the councils, not the general governance exceptions raised by the Auditor General. So for that particular aspect, they have included in the support to the PAC a designated stenographer, because the stenographers that are in Parliament are stenographers that sit in the chamber. They are stenographers that sit in the chamber and put together the answers of Parliament. So I think we have like 4, so I cannot remember the number because I'm not the head of administration of Parliament. Yeah, I'm not the clerk of Parliament. I'm just the political. I'm just deputizing the head of the political wing. So I know Parliament has stenographers, but their function purely is to manage the answers of Parliament, to report verbatim what transpires in Parliament. So for the committee, the World Bank sees it as efficient that they should add to the work of the Secretariat by also giving us support in hand by hiring a stenographer. That was how the stenographer was hired, and the stenographer went through the World Bank recruitment process without the PAC interfering into it, and at the final stage we came to have an interface with the person that was finally recommended and approved by the World Bank, and we realized that the person is competent enough to hold the position, and we have been working since.
Honorable Ibrahim Koyo Kamara is one of the many MPs who are serving currently as an aide to PAC. Who pays him?
The Honorable Ibrahim Aliu Kamara. I think Koyon is an AKA name. It's a Limba word.
just like Tawa.
Well, Tawa is my name now. Legally, documentary-wise, I've registered it at the Administrator and Registrar General's office. You know, I have a boss at the time when I was in the bank. Her name is Kalila Diana Kamara. She's a stickler for the right things. So knowing she was the first person that told me that I have potential in politics. So knowing that, she advised me, and she did a deed poll for me, including Tawa as part of my name, so it was registered formally. But with Koyo, Koyo is an AKA name. Okay, Koyo is an aide to me.
So then pays him?
Koyo is not paid. Koyo is an aide to me. Is aiding the work of the PAC as a support to the office of the Deputy Speaker. So what happens is this. He has been a former member of parliament. Yeah, he has been out of parliament. He has a lot of expert knowledge in parliamentary proceedings. So I see him as a useful resource to add to supporting the work of the secretariat. So selflessly, I invited him to work with me, and he acceded to it, and he's been working with the secretariat since. And I think he's been doing a fantastic job.
Your appointment as the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, which makes you automatically the head of the PAC, is one that receives huge commendation from the public. But as mentioned earlier, at some point in time you raised, and many other MPs have raised eyebrows as to the corrupt practices that are embedded within the looks and cranny of Parliament. Has your perception about the same changed? Hence, you're now the chairman of PAC.
I think there has been significant improvements since the issue of from 2019. Since I raised the alarm in 2019, there has been a lot of transparency and openness about Parliament, outside the introduction of Parliamentary Open Day, but in its accounting and in its operations. You would see that in the audit report itself, because Parliament itself is audited by the Auditor General. Yeah, you would see there are compliance issues still. There are huge compliance issues with regards maybe procedures for recruitment, issues coming up with water and sanitation. There are compliance issues in Parliament. But unlike other audits, wherein there were financial issues, now you would see that with that particular alarm bell, Parliament has reformed itself to a point that the parliamentary financial accounting method is more or less open. For example, we were given money by the Chinese government. It was open, we said it. We are supported we have received support from other businesses, because it is our intent, Mr. Speaker and myself and the administration, to see how internally we can galvanize support from the business community and construct an office space for members of Parliament. We have received support from a number of businesses, from Maki, from Roxem, from Fawaz. They've given us cement, they've given us iron rods. We've received from Leone. All of that is in public. That is to show how Parliament has progressed beyond what was happening prior to 2019. And financially, I've looked at the parliamentary accounts. It is also published. It is now in the parliamentary website. So these are all progress in parliamentary operation. And post-2019, Parliament has also established a parliamentary budget office, PBO, which also scrutinizes parliamentary financial activity together with the internal audit department. So I see a lot of progress in Parliament, but it is not perfect. We would have to continue to improve and make Parliament the beacon that people see us to be.
And on that lane, to improve and, you know, aspire for perfection, to eradicate or dilute sort of, you know, political interests or unity and alignment, do you see the need to review our laws to a point where the opposition would be the head to chair the Public Accounts Committee?
I think I've heard that there are countries in the Commonwealth that do have opposition as chairman of the PAC, but I tell you, it is not opposition that makes the reform. It is the individual. You can still be in the opposition and see the audit report as a medium to do other things and not to help and support government. Let's not forget there are two opposing factions two variants in the accountability space. This is an opposition that would sometimes see it as a way of, okay, let me don't look at the issue, let me just bury it, let me just use it for whatever I think I can get out of it and forget about it. And when there is electioneering, we can use all of those calumnies, all of those issues raised as a campaign tool. You would also have an opposition that would say, no, I would hold government to account.
Which on the flip side could also again be used as a campaign message, but you were chairing the Public Accounts Committee. As in, just an example, if you have an opposition who, as you're saying, may bury them under the carpet and wait for election. On the flip side, the public would also say you were the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. How come you never raised the alarm bell on these issues? Why are you raising it now, election period?
I will tell you, when it comes to politics, the opposition will tell you that, oh, because the way the Constitution is, even if you have the way the standing orders is and the way the Constitution is, Section 93, I think in 93.4 or 5, committees are set up by the strength of the political parties in parliament. So even if you have an opposition member of parliament as chairman of the PAC, it would mean the governing bench would have more members in the PAC than the opposition. And if it comes to difficult resolutions that you want to take, say for recovery and whatnot, you would have to put it to a vote. And if you put it to a vote, because you are in minority, you will lose the vote. So there are lots of dynamics, political dynamics that would be involved, and the opposition will tell you that, oh, I did not have the free hand because I did not have the numbers. I am chairman, but I did not have the free. The way our constitution was drafted and the way the standing order mirrored the constitution, it would make it almost impossible for the opposition not to have something to say, even if the opposition is chairman. But I will tell you, I'll come back to where I started. It is not about opposition, it's about person. It's about people. We can have 10 opposition people in the PAC. If they are not willing to probe beyond accountability threshold, nothing will happen. I am a member of the governing bench. I have held a lot of people. I am not in the good books of a number of people in the government. But that does not worry me, because what I need is the support of the president. When I became chairman of the PAC and deputy speaker, I had a conversation with the president, because Section 73 makes him a member of parliament. And when once he's in parliament, it takes the seat of the speaker. So I had a conversation with the president, and I told him the approach I want to use. He said, look at me. I am open to anything that you want to do in the PAC, because nobody, since I took over, nobody have I asked to go and collect anything for me and bring it to me. So there's nothing to cover for anybody. There's no issue I have interest in. Go and do your work. And since then, I've been doing my work perfectly. So it shows that it's about person, it's about personality. And I believe the personality drive that I've injected in the members of the PAC would go a long way for any other person that would inherit the PAC after my leadership. Yeah, because the PAC has already set a bar and nobody will come below that threshold.
When will you issue your report on your probings into the Auditor General's reports?
Our reports, they've completed the reports. We're in the review phase now, and that is also being done together with the audit service. We are reviewing it now, and I'm sure by the end of this month, we'll put out 2 reports. We've separated the report this time around. We're going to put out a report for the council separate and a report for the MDs separate, so that people will have time to see first, like the audit report is designed. We've designed the template of the PAC report. There will be a summary session, a summary portion, 10, 20 pages or 10, 15 pages as the case, or less. That would give you a summary of all the issues we dealt with, the outcomes, and what were the resolutions taken on them. So we would also send that to the audit service, so they would also reconcile with their records. So it will be the same for the councils. So we are going to put out a report. Hopefully by the end of this month, we're going to put it on the website of Parliament, and we're going to table it on the table of
So then the public can have access to that. But let's use this opportunity while you're here and take you to something off PAC, but also very important information that I've been told only Parliament can provide the public with that information. It's been 1 year this January since Sierra Leone switched to exclusively using the new Leones. But the public has not been made to understand how much it cost the nation in procuring the new currency. What was spent in getting the new Leones? We've been told only Parliament can provide that information.
And as I sit here as an individual, I represent Parliament, but I'm not Parliament. I sit as the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, but I'm just an embodiment of the composition of Parliament. So what I would say to that, for the public, yeah, I know it's an issue that came up sometime, some time ago, and it has to be handled by the Finance Committee. Let's not forget that PAC does not do everything in Parliament. There are other committees that do handle other MDs and other activities in Parliament, because committees are sessional and they are ministry specific. So it only becomes an interest to the PAC on two grounds. One, it's in the audit report, or two, it has financial implication that are deemed to be corrupt or they are deemed to be fraudulent. For example, when we looked at the issue of the NSA.
But nobody's telling the public how much was spent. So, doesn't the public deserve to know that information? So the more reason why I would take it in my stride and I would engage the chairman that would be announced and passed by the House. I'm sure when we convene, committees will be announced. The chairman, I don't want to say the chairman of the committee, because I don't know whether the chairman is going to be changed or not. I am not saying in public that I'm going to change the chairman. I am just saying, taking all parameters on board. So I am not quoted by others that, oh, they have endorsed the existing chairman. Or so whoever the chairman is going to be, I'm going to engage him that this is an issue that you should look into, and you must ensure that update is provided. Because for me, I will see it as a parliamentary issue, and I will also engage Mr. Speaker and the leader of government business, because it is government business for us to have SO 19 invoked, so that we can bring the governor of the Bank of Sierra Leone to Parliament, maybe in a committee room, so that he would explain live to the public exactly what transpired during the process of transition.
Honorable Tower, we've had a lot of messages, but I'll just take one and allow you to respond. This one is from Osfin Kamau, says, Mr. Honorable, can the citizen petition certain parliamentary decisions, such as the removal of the Auditor General via the Public Petition Committee? If so, what is the procedure the public must take to be heard by the Parliament? Also, which issue fall within the threshold requirements for citizens to bring to the doorstep of Parliament? Kind regards.
I think every issue that Parliament has not taken a decision is within the threshold for members of the public to bring to Parliament, and so that is why even in the lawmaking process, the consultation is part of what is required by the standing orders, and part of what the Constitution allows the ministries, departments, or agency, or a private member to do. So once a decision has not been taken by Parliament, but when Parliament takes a decision, it cannot be inquired into by even a court of law. That is Section 94. Parliament regulates itself, and decisions of Parliament is final. Nobody can inquire into it, because it is the final arbiter. It is the people's representative. When they make a decision, it's final. So I'm sorry, you may have had an opinion, but what was required of Parliament, even he had brought in his petition, would not be in position to look at it, because what was required by Section 137(7) or so is for us to take a vote. That is all we needed to do on the removal of the Auditor General or a judge. We cannot discuss it. It's not an issue of debate. We cannot. The Speaker was lenient enough to allow both the leader of government business and leader of opposition to make a presentation. But beyond that, we are not allowed to take any debate on it except to vote.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte, who is the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and he also doubles as the Chairman for the Public Accounts Committee. It's been a pleasure having you as always. This is a conversation that will continue.
Thank you.
Especially when the report is out. And also follow up on the investigation into the alleged fake receipts in the office of the President.
It's still remains alleged, and I've told you that we're going to look at it as a PSC.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day and Happy New Year.